6-inch devices are a dying breed. As we've said as of late, there are more non-6-inch e-paper devices than 6 inches, which is a far departure from e-reader's humble beginnings. But we'll take it for what it is. This is the Pocketbook Verse Lite. This is a simplistic 6-inch unit with 1024 by 758 resolution, 212 ppi, touchscreen, and a dual-core processor. It is powered by a 1000 mAh battery and comes with USB-C. All is well with the Verse Lite in terms of specs, but the question remains, why would you buy this? For that, we'll have to get into the review, and we'll start by answering those very questions. Store. A lot of devices don't have internal bookstores, and you have to rely on other markets like Google Play, etc., but Pocketbook has their own, along with a secondary bookstore that allows you to borrow from libraries. Content. Pocketbook is one of the few companies that when you buy an e-reader out of the gates, they give you hundreds of preloaded books. Most manufacturers give you 0. Formats. Unlike some manufacturers that only give you a few book formats, Pocketbook supports 25 of them, including Adobe DRM, making it truly a multi-format platform. Operating system. They're using Linux, which means everything works all the time. Nothing crashes, everything is as it should be. There's no forced stop, clearing cache, or anything else that hinders your true reading experience. Languages. 37 languages. 37 right out of the gates, and 35 keyboard layouts with 3 customizable toggles, making them truly one of the most internationally accommodating operating systems in the game. Price. This unit retails for anywhere between $120 to $150 USD, depending on the outlet, which honestly is a pretty good price for this type of unit. E-readers are getting expensive, costing anywhere from $200 up to $2,000 depending on the brand, of course. So with those main selling points out of the way, let's look at the actual Verse Lite itself. So looking at the unit itself, it is quite nice, but there's one glaring issue. There's no physical page turn buttons, and this did make Pocketbook kind of stand out amongst the crowd to have things like physical page turn buttons and dual color tone bezels and stuff like that. So they have scaled it back to approach it more plainly, it looks like. This is looking very Amazon Kindle kind of paperwhite-y, or Kindle Basic I should say, with its recessed screen. But honestly, that's not a bad thing because they still have their little bit of stylistic angles cut out at the bottom here, which not a whole lot of other manufacturers do, and this really nice backing. Now it does leave a lot of fingerprints, although it is nice to the touch. You can take the backing off as well if you need to service the battery or anything like that, but it's not advisable to do so. There will be a sticker on the inside as well. You have a Pocketbook logo at the bottom, nothing on all of the sides, and everything happens down here with its power button, status indicator light built in, and its USB-C. Yes, you do have a sunken screen, which is really nice. This is one of the reasons you would buy this unit, because it does have a very clear appearance. The home screen is very much the exact same as all other Pocketbooks. You have library notes, store, browser, and apps down below, and you have your top drop down that gives you all of your stuff like flight mode, dark mode, which inverts the entire unit, and you have task manager, sync, and Wi-Fi. All of these notifications can be turned off, and you do have a glow light, although there's no smart light, which is a little bit unfortunate. If you're on the very lowest setting and you turn it off or on, it's the exact same thing, it'll just be off. Now, you do have the 3 buttons at the very top, and you can customize the controls as well, and you can choose what to have there and what you don't want to have there, which is really cool. You can do things like G-sensor lock, power off, etc. So it's kind of nice to have that top drop-down bar customization, which not everyone gives you. Now, we're going to look at apps just because they're not the traditional applications you've seen from Google Play, but they are apps in their own right. Calculator, calendar, dictionary, gallery, etc. You have a bunch of store services, we'll show you that in a bit. Photo frame, which is kind of a dying breed of an application, but it's cool to have. A little bit of games, and Scribble. Scribble is really something Pocketbook has implemented a while back. It's not very good while you're writing it, but it does render into a pretty decent image. And if I reach over here, we can use capacitive pens. No, you can't use Wacom pens or active capacitive pens to any degree, but you can technically use these, but it's just going to be the exact same thing as your fingertip. You get a couple different colors and a couple line thicknesses and stuff like that. It's not very useful, but it's nice to have in a pinch if you want to jot something down. Now, the thing we really want to show you before we get into reading is settings. Surprisingly, there's a lot of settings here and a lot of things you wouldn't see on the average e-reader. You have things like personalize, which you can toggle off or on the G sensor, LED indication, and yes, even though you don't have physical buttons anymore, you still get key mapping, and you can map the bottom button to not even turn off or on your device. It can be something else. You can do a single tap as a screenshot and a double tap as the library. So it's kind of interesting how they utilize the only button they have and they disassociate it with the power off and on or standby, and you can just sidestep that and choose anything. I've never seen that in my entire life, actually. We also have gestures in reading mode. You have different gestures you can do from bottom up, top down, left, right, etc. So there's lots of stuff you can do there. You also have logos, open at startup. You can change the boot logo. There's a lot of things you can do to personalize your e-reader. Honestly, you even have widget settings. Widget settings was books, recommendations on home screen. That's basically all you have. But it is interesting that a Linux-based unit would even say that terminology. You have different languages. There's a ton of different languages and 30 plus keyboard layouts as well. This is huge because not only can you choose your keyboard layouts like we already mentioned, you have 3 different hotkey keyboard layouts that you can toggle between when you're writing. That's really, really internationally friendly, which Pocketbook is. That's really one of their huge points. You have maintenance mode, which includes USB mode, privacy, factory reset, and demo mode. Again, demo mode is one of those photo frame things. It's a dying breed, but it is there. You get some saving power mode and software. You can do software version, check automatically, etc. So that's basically all of the settings that will pertain to any sort of realistic go-tos. And before we dive in, we want to look at the store, because Pocketbook has an actually pretty good store for something that doesn't have Google Play, something that doesn't have Amazon, for example. All of these are purchasable. They are written in euros regardless of region. We're in Japan on Canadian credentials, but we still have euros. So you would just click on something and you would download it, buy it, gets delivered to your device immediately. So it's kind of nice that they have this store. But there's more places to access books on this than just the store. Please excuse our pronunciation, but Only Hey, which if you click on, this gives you access to a lot of different libraries. We can't confirm which ones do work and do not work based off of where you live, because a lot of these looks to be like Austria, Belgium, etc. But oh my goodness, look at this. It is endless. Endless, endless, endless. We're still in B. Here we go. C, D. Got to go through the whole alphabet. It's very interesting. And then when you click on something, it's going to go directly to that respective library. But it does look like, there you go. So you are going to have the library user ID and password respective to the one you choose out of the near thousands of options you have. So it's not like anyone can access anything all the time. It is going to depend on your location, and we just want to make that clear. But as we said at the top of the hour, when you get a Pocketbook, you get hundreds of books. Hundreds and hundreds of books. There are a ton of preloaded content, entries and books and picture books and novels and editorials that are preloaded on here. Now, the reading experience honestly is pretty much the most normal thing, because Pocketbook has stayed true to the inherent nature of an ebook reader. They haven't made it too flashy. They don't have page turn animations. They don't have beeps and boops or anything like that, or haptic feedback when you turn a page, a little vibration occurs. It's very, very simple, which is kind of nice. You can click on Note as well. And this allows you to mark up your reading experience. You can highlight, you can go over to the pen, like that. You can erase what you've done. You can add annotations. You can screenshot the whole thing, and then you can X out of your note-taking section. Then when you turn pages, it goes away, and anything you did have a note on, there will be a little note icon. Alternatively, you can long press to highlight something, and you can do highlight, note, search in Google, add an annotation, dictionary definition, etc. If you do click in the middle, you can go to the settings, in which case you get access to the text augmentation. You can do line spacing, you can do different fonts. These different fonts have kind of a little bit of inertia right there, so it turns it into an A2 mode basically, but you don't have a speed mode toggle throughout the whole device itself, but only in certain sections. And you have justification, pages, status bar, all that kind of stuff. So they do give it to you to not really craft your own experience, but they give you enough customization that it's never going to look bad. It's always going to look good to your liking. Now, there is something we want to mention, is that the whiteness of the screen is so drastically different than Kaleido. For example, this is glow light off, white screen. This is Kaleido. That's how much darker it looks. And this is every single Kaleido. This is Pocketbook itself when they use their Kaleido models. That's kind of a huge selling point as to why a lot of people ask, why should I buy a normal sunken screen black and white e-reader? I mean, that's kind of why. Because you get massive reflectivity on this and almost no reflectivity on this, because this is a glass screen and it's super dark and super gray, and you don't need a glow light on this. It just looks so vibrant. You could point this at a film light and still read what's on the page. You couldn't do the same thing on a phone. Look at that. I can't even read what time it is now. So that is a huge selling point, and why the e-reading experience has always been so stable on a Pocketbook is because of those things that have been implemented. Outside of that, there's not too much you can do on the e-reading experience. You have dictionary, you have rotate, which you can always just take advantage of the G sensor anyways, so you don't necessarily have to click rotate. But when you go into the landscape view, it's just kind of a natural. You'll never really be holding your 6-inch e-reader like this. It's always going to be just this way. But all things considered, a very healthy and kind of stable e-reading execution by the company. Something we don't really look at a whole lot is web browsing, and that's because it's kind of just a little bit boring. But on a device that doesn't have multimedia, doesn't have videos, doesn't have audio, doesn't really have much going for it in terms of a multimedia experience, well, you better be sure we're gonna look at this. So we're just gonna type in good e-reader on Google, and hopefully we get to our website. There we go. So we're just going to click on our blog and just kind of give you a natural look at the whole processes of everything and how it kind of loads everything, and whether the entire site can load at all, because certain devices that run Linux that are a little bit more simpler, that don't have a lot of RAM and processing power, etc., especially that don't run Android with different operating systems and different apps, they have trouble with certain elements on the screen. But it looks like, speed aside, it did do it pretty well. Now, it does go into an A2 mode when you swipe. See that, right? But when you let go, it is then rendered back to, let's call it HD mode. Now, we don't know to which degree they scale back and throttle the speed versus the visuals, etc. But I can tell you, in interacting with the ad elements are a little bit difficult at times, because honestly, this isn't meant for web browsing. It is just kind of really slow, but it can do it. So you can visit semi-complex websites like that and utilize it to that degree. But I say it's not meant for browsing, but it's one of their 5 things at the bottom is the browser. Finally, just look at a couple more things here and then we'll wrap up, which is basically these games. We're not going to go too much into it, but you could play games on this. You can't download anything outside of this, but in a pinch, you could play 2-player chess. Pretty much, it is a back to basics approach with everything that this device needs to be. It's basically the definition of non-excess. There's nothing outside of the simplistic utilitarian nature of this being an ebook reader that it needs to accomplish, because why mess with perfection? The lack of a smart light is a little bit of a letdown, and the fact that they removed the physical buttons, which really did make Pocketbook stand out amongst the crowd, as even Onyx has 3 devices with physical buttons in their lineup. but you can't doubt the simplistic and successful execution of a traditional e-reader by the company. Pocketbook has been a brand that has never wavered, except once with their EO collaboration with bigme. But outside of that, they have stuck to their roots, existing longer than almost any manufacturer in the game, predating many of the other biggest brands in the industry. There's no question about the usability and international functionality of a Pocketbook device, and it's bundled oh so well in this little humble 6-inch.